It's a great time to be a landscape architect. 30% of urgently needed carbon drawdown can come from nature-based solutions. I imagine that you may have heard a lot about emissions coming from buildings, but did you realize that emissions also come from outside of buildings? They do, and they're oftentimes overlooked. Things like roadways, bridges, shorelines, seawalls, parks, plazas, basically everything outside of the buildings. First, embodied carbon emissions. Those are the fossil fuel emissions from the extraction, transportation, manufacturing, and construction of materials on sites. Also, operational emissions, which happen over time in the lifespan of a project, like using gas-powered mowing equipment or chemical fertilizers on landscapes. Trees, plants, and soils naturally extract carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. They sink it into their biomass for a long period of time. That's what we call carbon sequestration. And per the Nature Conservancy, 30% of cost-effective carbon drawdown solutions can come from nature-based solutions. Here's one great example of a nature-based solution. As cities are faced with the threat of sea level rise, we will have to adapt. Instead of going with a concrete seawall, we could implement a living shoreline, which would gradually increase the grades needed to protect from sea level rise while reducing the embodied carbon emissions, while increasing carbon sequestration. Through plantings, we could support biodiversity, and if we're thoughtful about how we engage with the community, we could also create more equitable access for all. I think that across the disciplines, we're all coming to realize that there are better alternatives out there, and they're greener. They emit less carbon, they sequester more, and they actually happen to be much more cost effective. Oftentimes, they can be up to 50 to 70% cheaper. And who doesn't like that? As landscape architects, environmental engineers, we generally think what we do is good because it's green. But at the end of the day, our projects have a significant carbon footprint. And so by measuring our emissions, we can start to manage our impacts going forward, and we can evolve as designers over time. It is taking people some time to think first about green versus gray solutions. But the good news is landscape architects have been implementing these solutions for hundreds of years. Just as building codes are evolving in response to a changing climate, so must the policies for the exterior built environment. So we welcome friendly collaboration with politicians that can help us streamline policies that can rapidly scale up the implementation of nature-based solutions. As a designer, I thought one day I could go online and I would find a tool that would help me measure and improve the carbon impact of my projects. But it turned out that didn't exist. So as a stubborn farm girl from Missouri, I realized I was going to have to make the tool. There's three main aspects of the app. It measures the embodied carbon from the materials that we use in our projects. It measures operational carbon emissions that happen over its whole lifespan, and then it also measures carbon sequestration through the trees and plants and soils and landscape that happen over the project's lifespan as well. So it balances out and tells you how much time it's going to take for you to offset those emissions to the point where your project becomes carbon sequestering beyond its emissions. And it's online and it's free. There are lots of ways that you can get involved, whether you're a designer, a homeowner, or a policymaker, or just reach out.